The letter arrived on my 18th birthday, delivered by a lawyer in a crisp gray suit, who looked distinctly uncomfortable standing in the Orphanage's worn reception area. For 17 years, I'd believed I had no one, that I was completely alone in this world. Sister Margaret handed me the envelope with trembling hands, and as I read the words, my entire understanding of my life shifted. To Emma Rose Carter, regarding the estate of Margaret Elizabeth Carter, deceased, my grandmother, a grandmother I never knew existed, had left me a farm nestled in the mountains of rural Montana, 3 hours from any major city. The lawyer explained that she'd been searching for me for years, but by the time she found me, illness had already taken hold. She'd left specific instructions that I was to inherit everything on my 18th birthday, along with a separate, sealed letter that I was to read only when I arrived at the property. 2 weeks later, I stood exactly where I'm standing now, on this hillside overlooking the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. The main farmhouse was a 2-story structure with faded blue shutters, surrounded by rolling pastures that glowed golden in the afternoon sun. But it was the barn that caught my attention. A massive weathered building with wooden walls that had turned silver with age, positioned against the dramatic backdrop of limestone cliffs. Something about it called to me even from this distance. The property manager, an older man named Harold, met me at the gate with keys and a sympathetic expression. "Your grandmother was a fine woman," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Kept to herself mostly, especially these last few years. The farm's been maintained, but she left instructions that nobody, and I mean nobody, was to enter that barn. Said you'd understand when the time came." His words sent a chill down my spine, but also ignited a curiosity I couldn't ignore. The farmhouse was like stepping into a time capsule, filled with furniture from another era, lace curtains that filtered the sunlight into soft patterns on the wooden floors, and photographs covering every surface. I spent hours studying those pictures, seeing my face reflected in the woman who appeared in frames spanning decades. My grandmother had my eyes, my smile, my stubborn chin. In some photos, she stood in front of that barn, always with a mysterious expression that seemed to hold secrets. There were pictures of my mother, too, as a child, a teenager, and then one final photo of her holding a baby. Me. The last picture showed her, standing in front of the barn door, and someone had written on the back, "Some doors open to the past, some to the future, and some to truth." I found the sealed letter tucked inside a music box on the mantel, my name written in elegant script across the envelope. My hand shook as I opened it. "My dearest Emma," it began, "if you're reading this, then I've finally found you. Though I may not have survived long enough to meet you in person, I'm so sorry for the years we lost, for the circumstances that separated our family. Your mother made choices she thought would protect you. Choices I didn't understand until it was too late. This farm is your birthright, but more importantly, what lies in the barn is your inheritance, not of property or money, but of truth. I've kept something safe for you, something that will explain everything. Why your mother left, why I couldn't find you, why your life has been what it's been. But I must warn you, once you enter that barn and uncover what I've protected, you cannot unknow these truths. Inside you'll find the key to understanding your family's past and perhaps your own future. When you're ready, when you've found the courage, go to the barn. Look for the loose floorboard beneath the third window on the north side. That's where your journey truly begins. All my love, even across the distance of death. Grandmother Margaret. Folded the letter carefully and looked out the window toward the barn, its massive form now silhouetted against the setting sun, and I knew that tomorrow, everything would change. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with possibilities about what could be hidden in the barn. At dawn, I pulled on my boots and jacket, my grandmother's letter tucked safely in my pocket, and walked down the dirt path toward the weathered building. The morning mist clung to the ground, making the landscape look ethereal, dreamlike. The barn doors were secured with a heavy padlock, but Harold had included the key in the set he'd given me. The lock clicked open easily, as if it had been waiting for this moment. I pulled the heavy door open, and it swung smoothly on recently oiled hinges. Someone, probably Harold following instructions, had been maintaining this place even while keeping everyone out. Sunlight streamed through gaps in the wooden walls, creating shafts of light filled with dancing dust particles. The barn was largely empty. Just some old farming equipment covered in tarps, stacks of hay bales, and that distinctive smell of aged wood and earth. I made my way to the north side, counting windows, and knelt beneath the third one. My fingers found the loose floorboard immediately, and when I pried it up, I discovered a metal box, surprisingly heavy and covered in a thin layer of dust. Inside the box were more letters, dozens of them, addressed to Emma in my mother's handwriting, each one dated but never sent. Spanning from the year I was born to just 3 months before, I arrived at the orphanage. Tears blurred my vision as I began reading. My mother hadn't abandoned me by choice. She'd been running, hiding from my father, a man she described as dangerous and controlling, someone who'd become increasingly unstable. She'd left me at the orphanage believing it was temporary, planning to come back once she'd established a safe place for us. But she never got the chance. The letters told a story of constant movement, of near misses, of a woman desperate to protect her child while being hunted by someone who couldn't let go. The final letter, dated just days before she died in a car accident, revealed that she'd finally contacted her mother, my grandmother, and they'd been planning my retrieval. "I'm coming for you soon, my darling girl," she'd written. "Your grandmother will help us start over. Just a little longer." But there was something else in the box beneath the letters. A leather-bound journal, and it wasn't my mother's handwriting. It was older, the entries dating back decades. And as I read, I realized this was my grandmother's documentation of something extraordinary. Our family, the Carter women specifically, had a gift, though she called it both blessing and burden. We could sense truths, lies, and intentions in others, a form of intuition so powerful it was almost supernatural. My grandmother had used it to help people in the community, solving disputes, finding lost things, even preventing crimes. My mother had inherited the ability but had struggled with it, overwhelmed by the constant barrage of other people's emotions and deceptions. It had drawn my father to her initially, someone who wanted to possess that power, to control it. When she tried to leave, he'd become obsessed with finding her, not out of love, but out of the desire to possess what he couldn't understand. My grandmother wrote that she'd been preparing a place for us, this farm, where my mother could learn to control the gift, where I could grow up understanding it, rather than being frightened by it. I sat there in the dusty barn, surrounded by my family's secrets, and suddenly so many things made sense. The way I'd always known when Sister Margaret was hiding her worry, when other children at the orphanage were planning mischief, when people weren't being truthful. I thought everyone experienced the world this way, never realizing I was different. My grandmother's final journal entry was dated just 2 weeks before her death. "I found Emma. She's safe, but I'm running out of time. The cancer is advancing faster than expected. I've prepared everything, left instructions. The farm will go to her, along with these journals, these letters, this truth. I hope she'll understand that she comes from a line of strong women, women who've used their gifts to help others despite the costs. I hope she'll forgive us for the years we lost. Most of all, I hope she'll embrace who she is and what she can become. The world needs women like us. Emma. Women who can see through deception to truth, who can sense danger before it strikes, who can help others find their way. This farm is her sanctuary, but it's also her training ground. Everything she needs to understand and develop her abilities is here. In these journals I've kept for 50 years, documenting techniques, exercises, lessons learned. She won't be alone in this. She'll have me even in death through these words." I spent the entire day in that barn, reading journal after journal, learning about the grandmother I'd never met, understanding the mother I'd lost, and discovering a legacy I'd never imagined. The farm wasn't just property. It was a school, a sanctuary, a place where generations of Carter women had honed their abilities. As the sun began to set, casting that same golden light across the pastures, I stood at the barn door and looked out at my inheritance. This place represented everything I'd never had. Roots, history, purpose, family. But more than that, it represented everything I could become. I wasn't just Emma Carter, former orphan with no past. I was Emma Rose Carter, inheritor of an extraordinary legacy, possessor of a gift that could change lives, and owner of the most beautiful farm in Montana. Tomorrow I would begin reading my grandmother's training journals. I would learn to control and develop this ability that had always been a part of me. I would make this place truly mine, would honor the women who'd come before me by becoming who they'd hoped I could be. For the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. I had a past, a purpose, and a future, all discovered in the dusty corners of an old barn that held the secrets of 3 generations. As I locked the barn door and walked back to the farmhouse, I wasn't the same girl who'd arrived just yesterday. I was finally home and my real life was just beginning. If this story resonated with you, if you felt Emma's journey from loneliness to belonging, from confusion to clarity, please subscribe to our channel. Every week we share stories of ordinary people, discovering extraordinary truths about themselves and their families. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a tale of mystery, inheritance, and self-discovery. Your support helps us continue creating these emotional journeys. And who knows, the next story might be about someone just like you. Subscribe now and let's continue this journey together.